Hey, what's up everybody? Tony with Lido, Loca. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today, let's talk about tipping. Let's talk about gratuities. One of the most frequent questions we get on all of our social media is how much do you tip X? How much do you tip the room steward? How much do you tip the bartender when you're on your cruise vacation? I figured the easiest way to go about this was just to make a list of the people I normally pay tips to when it comes to cruising, the cruise vacation. And I'm going to tell you those folks that I normally tip and how much I tip them. So yeah, I guess today is a tips about tips video. Let's do it. Again, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, if you're into cruising, please consider subscribing with the notification bell on. Getting right into it, let's tackle the big one. There is a hot debate about whether you should let the cruise line assign your gratuities or whether you should tip everybody individually. Now, the way that cruising works currently is most of your major cruise lines will assess you a daily gratuity, a daily service fee. They call it different things, but that is tipping. So they are going to assess those service fees every day that you go on a cruise, somewhere between $14 and $17 a day per person. And that is considered the daily gratuity, the daily assigned gratuity. You can prepay that. So if you know you're going on a 7-day cruise before you go cruising, you can pay the 7 times $15 and have it out of the way. Or you can wait till you get on the cruise and they will assign those gratuities and you have to pay it at the end. Now, some people don't like that model and the cruise line will allow you to remove those gratuities. You have to go to customer service. You have to say, please remove those gratuities. And people that say that they do that, they are proponents of individually tipping people as they go with cash. They feel like they have more control over their money. They're not being prescribed by the cruise line who they should tip and why. So that's the assigned gratuity debate in a nutshell. This is where I fall on it. Good or bad, the system that the cruise line has to make sure that people get paid the way they're supposed to pay is that assigned gratuity. I don't ever remove the assigned gratuity. I don't 100% know where all of that gratuity money goes to. Some of the cruise lines lay it out where it's sort of clear. Some of them lay it out where it's a little vague. And so I'm not always 100% sure where that money is going to. So I just pay it and I let the cruise line take care of it. But that still leaves you in the interesting position when people are serving you, when people are doing things for you face to face, day to day. Do you give them cash money? I've got friends across the world, and tipping is primarily a cultural American thing. Many other places in the world, they don't have tipping. So let me make this appeal. If you are somebody from another place and you're coming to the United States to jump on a cruise, you have to fit into the American cultural norms. For example, I'm going to Asia in about 10 days, and I've been looking at the cultural norms for China and for Japan. And one of the things in Japan is it is insulting to offer somebody a tip. Now, I've got two options. I can say I'm going to take my American cultural inclinations and offer a tip anyways, or I can take the knowledge that it is insulting to the person for me to offer a tip and not tip them. That's what I'm going to do. So I think the appeal works both ways. I don't know why people, they'll come to a different culture and they'll be like, well, I'm just not going to do that because I disagree with it. So here's my appeal. If you come and you're cruising out of a U.S. port and they're expecting U.S. cultural norms, and you don't normally tip, you still should tip those people because the way the system is set up is part of their income is based on tipping. Whether that's right or wrong, that's just the way that it's done from U.S. ports. Just like when I go to Asia, I can't just go over there and just, thumb my nose at the cultural norms there. Does that make sense? At least that makes sense to me. You play the role where you're at, and the way the system is set up, at least from U.S. ports, is the people that you're cruising with that are serving you on the cruise, part of their income is based on you giving them tips through the assigned gratuity or giving them money in their hand. So with that in mind, what have we established here? I do the assigned gratuity, but because of, I guess, pressure, societal pressure of growing up in the American culture, I have a hard time when somebody works with me day in, day out, not giving them a tip. So let's talk about who I tip on the cruise ship. And look, I know I'm going to go through this list and there's going to be people that you might tip that I don't tip, but let me tell you a couple people that I tip on the cruise ship that are already a part of the assigned gratuity. First of all, the room steward. that person is a part of this assigned gratuity. In almost every cruise line, when you read, they say the cabin steward is included. I have a hard time working with somebody day in, day out, them taking care of us and not at the end of the cruise showing some sort of monetary appreciation. So I could justify it. I could say, look, I paid my gratuity. Like, you want to have that conversation with the person. Look, like, I'm not going to hand you cash because I paid my gratuity through the cruise line. Super awkward, not the way we do it. I typically tip the room steward. And on the cruises that we've gone, I can tell you the range that we've tipped, $30 all the way up to $50. And I know people do different things. That's just what we've done personally, but I always give the room steward a tip. Another person I will tip on the cruise ship are bartenders. Now, the bartenders, their gratuities, they don't come through that assigned gratuity, but it comes through the purchase of a drink. So whenever you purchase a drink, or if you purchase the drink package, a gratuity is included with that. Now, some cruise lines, even if you have the drink package, when you purchase a drink, they will bring you a receipt for your drink, and that will show your gratuity on it. But most of the time, it gives you an opportunity to give an additional tip. And so for me, when I am purchasing a drink at the bar, if I have a ticket to sign, I will normally tip $1 extra, or sometimes I will just round it up. If it's above 50 cents, I will round it up to the next dollar. So say they bring me a ticket, they've got the price of the drink, they've got the regular gratuity, and then the total is like, say $9.18 or something like that. I will put an 82-cent tip to make it the next dollar, or sometimes I'll just write down $1. I over tip, but again, it's part of that social construct in the US. I don't know that I like it, right? I don't like the fact that the cruise line does the assigned gratuity, because I'm still trying to follow the same norms that I normally do by making sure that I add a tip on receipts, or that I make sure that I pay somebody that works with me directly. And so that is the system, but that's what I do. And so when it comes to drinks, I will either round up to the next dollar, or I will just give $1, just depending on the circumstances or how it hits me there. But normally I try to make sure I give close to $1 extra for a drink after I've already given some sort of tip that was automatically included. Another set of servers on the cruise ship that don't partake in the assigned gratuity is the room service staff. So if you use room service, whether the room service cost anything or whether it was included in your cruise, those people aren't a part of the general tipping pool that goes with the assigned daily gratuity. So I always tip the room service, the person that brings the food to the door, anywhere between $3 to $5, depending how much is there. Or, yeah, I take a lot of 5s with me. A lot of this on the list is going to be 5. So if I don't have any 1s, I'm just going to give the person that brings me my room service $5 for making the trip. Let me give you one more example on the cruise ship, and then we'll talk about some examples off the cruise ship. I go to the casino and I play craps. And one of the ways that dealers in the craps game make money is from tokes, T-O-K-E-S. That's what you call a tip in gambling parlance. You toke the dealers. And these guys are obviously making a wage, but they make extra money because of your tips. Now, the way I do it with gambling is, the way I feel about it is, if I have to gamble to win my money or lose my money, then you have to gamble to win or lose your toke. So first of all, if I have a losing session, I don't tip anything, right? We all lost together. I look at it like this: we're all in it together. We succeed together. We lose together. So if I lose, they lose. That's part of the risk of dealing in the casino, of testing the fates. Now, here's the other thing. If I'm playing and I get on a good roll and I'm starting to win, I like to put a little good juju out there. I like to put a little love on the table for the dealers. And the way I normally do it is I just will bet $1 on all of the hard ways. So if you're not a craps person, I know this doesn't make sense to you, but there is a roll of the dice. 2-2 is a 4, 3-3 is a 6, 4-4 is an 8, and a 5-5 is a 10. Those are called the hard ways, and those are bets on the craps table. And so what I'll do during a good run is I'll throw $1 down for the dealers. If that hits, maybe I'll up that bet, but that's a cool way to get them into the action. I feel like if everybody at the table is rooting for a certain number, that goes back. I know none of that really, I mean, it's all just random numbers popping up on dice, but you get this whole thing going. It's very social at the craps table. You want the dealers rooting for you. You want everybody rooting for the dice to come up the number that you want. So on a good roll, I will put down $1 on each of the hard ways, $4, $1 for the crew, through on each of the hard ways. And it's exciting when it hits, you know, like say, I think a hard 10 maybe pays 8 to 1 or something like that. So the dollar becomes $8. They get to bank that money. That's where they toke. And then at the end of the session, if I have a winning session, I'll usually do the same thing. I'll peel off 4 white chips for $1. I'll place the hard ways for the boys. And if I've had a really good session, maybe I do a couple bucks. But most of the time, I don't just straight give a tip. I like to feel like we're in it together. So if I have to gamble to win, you have to gamble for your tip. And that's the way I do it. And that's another example of something that I do on the cruise ship. We probably got it out of order. There's going to be some circumstances that you tip prior to getting on the cruise ship. A couple that come to mind is if you go to a restaurant the night before you cruise, you're going to leave a tip there. Normally for food service at U.S. ports and U.S. cities, I tip anywhere between 20 and 25%, depending on how good the service is. Back in the day, it used to be 15%. 18%'s been a standard at some point, but I used to work in the restaurant business and we were always hoping for a 20% tip. And I still believe in paying that forward. If I get good service at all, even if I get like mediocre service, I'm leaving at least 20%. Again, the way I look at it is if I've got a couple extra dollars that's going to help somebody who's done a good job taking care of me, taking care of my family for dinner, I'm going to do that, man. I just feel like you're sowing the seeds of goodness by laying down a couple extra dollars wherever you can. The day of the cruise, you're either going to park at the cruise ship or you're going to take some sort of shuttle or ride share over. Always make sure that I tip the shuttle bus driver. That person's usually going to handle your luggage. This goes for Uber and Lyft. Uber and Lyft both have a way that you can tip through the app. And normally for that ride to the cruise ship, for somebody putting my luggage in their car or on their shuttle bus, I give $5. No matter how many bags that I have, that's another place that I like to do $5. So I'll give $5 to the shuttle driver. And then when you get to the port, there are people there, the luggage handlers, the porters. They might work for the Port Authority. They don't work for the cruise line, but they are people that are expecting tips to supplement their wage. And so I always give those guys $5. Let me say this. You can be a big tipper. You can be a little tipper. The only time that people really get annoyed with you is when you are a zero tipper. And so tip where you're comfortable, but as long as you're above zero, you're not going to feel bad. Now, look, you might not feel bad anyways, but I'm just saying if you want to walk and talk in the tipping culture, which we live in the United States, you got to give something, right? And so $5 to the shuttle driver, that guy's happy. $5 to the porter, that person's happy. $5 goes a long way, but $2 would go a long way. $3 would go a long way. Zero is the only thing where you could actually make somebody have a bad day by not giving anything. Another pre-cruise thing that could happen, maybe you valet your car somewhere. Normally when I valet my car, I will give $5 or $10 depending on the circumstance, but again, $5 is king for me. And the same thing for bell services. So some hotels that you go to, there's already a guy right there. Can I load up your luggage? Can I take it up to your room? They got the cart, they got the whole thing going on. The temptation sometimes is like, no, I'll just take my own luggage. Just peel off $5, let the guy take the luggage up. You got to think about this. Most of these tasks that they're being helped with, so let's say it takes 10 minutes and I peel off a $5 and I give that to you. If you make $5 extra in addition to your normal wage, 6 times an hour, that's $30 extra. So I feel like 5 is a good number. There's people that are going to tip more and people that are going to tip less. 5 is my sweet spot. So for valet parking, for bell services, I like to peel off a $5 and hook those people up. So I think that has us covered on the cruise ship, that has us covered before we cruise. There's going to be some circumstances when you go to port that you're going to tip. If you take an excursion and that excursion is some sort of tour that someone's going to narrate a tour that's going to tell you something, that's a person that's going to be expected to get a tip. They will solicit a tip for you. So go ahead and again, that's a $5 tip for me. If I ride around on a tour bus and somebody tells me about the local island, at the end of it, I'll peel off a $5 and I will give them, and they'll have a tip bucket there. They will solicit you for tips. It's all part of the deal when you go to the islands. So just be aware of that. Again, on the taxi, so a real example from our last cruise, we took a taxi from the port in Cozumel to Mr. Sancho's Beach Club. That cost $17 regardless of how many people were in the cab. And so it's just my wife and I. So the trip over, $17. the trip back, $17. I just peeled off a 20, gave him a 20. Always tip your taxi driver, and that one was just, let's just give him a 20, right? And so again, anything is better than zero. $2, $5, the $3. Again, they are making a regular wage, and tipping is expected, and it is in addition to that. And so for the taxi, a lot of times I'll use the math to round up. As long as I'm giving a couple dollars, that's kind of my thing. So if I'm a couple dollars to a 10, or I'm a couple dollars to a 20, as long as I'm at least $2 or more, I will add that as my taxi tip. Another example from Mr. Sancho's, we had a server that worked with us all day there, and basically he got us food and he got us drink. He gave us the lay of the land. We probably had 5 or 4 interactions with the guy. We didn't really drink a lot, but for the guy that we worked with at Mr. Sancho's, we gave $20. We were there about 4 hours, and again, 3 or 4 interactions, and we paid $20 for that. Another at the port opportunity is pedicabs. Some of the longer piers will have people that are using pedicabs to shuttle people from the cruise ship to the port area, or from the port area back to the cruise ship. That's another $5 tipper for me. I ride the pedicab by myself, and I always tip the person $5 for a 3 to 5 minute pedicab ride. And the good thing about the pedicab, they drop you off, they can pick somebody else up. But $5 is the number that I use for the pedicab. And the last one's a little near and dear to my heart. I used to go and juggle on the streets of Nashville during festivals, and I would set my hat out, and I would try to get some coin in my hat by entertaining people with my juggling skills and my witty banter. And so if you see somebody that's a street performer, they are there working for tips. Now you could say, well, it's up to them, it's their choice. But here's the deal. If you are going to go and enjoy what they're doing, if you're going to stop, if you're going to watch, if you're going to photograph, if you're going to video, if you're going to stand there right in front of them, take in all they have to offer, see the hat, see the tip jar, see the open guitar case, and then just smile at them and walk off, it's just not cool. Those people are working for tips. Throw a dollar. Again, anything is better than zero. Drop a dollar in that hat. Give them a couple bucks if you want to enjoy it. And if you don't want to enjoy it, just recognize that that's what they're working for and just walk on by. You might hear it as you pass by. You might see it out of your peripheral. But don't insult the person by watching their show and not tipping them. All right, so that's the way I personally tip. I don't expect everybody to tip the same way. Again, it's a cultural thing. If you're from a different culture, this may not be the way that you approach any of these things, and I can appreciate that. But you also have to have situational awareness. If you are in a place where those things are expected, consider adopting, assimilating to those cultural norms. And again, I know there's going to be people that tip more than me. There's going to be people that tip less than me, but that's how I do it. Hopefully these are helpful. They're not hard and fast guidelines. Do what you feel like you're comfortable doing, and that's just how I do it. Hope you found the information helpful. I would love to hear how you guys tip. Are there, like, you know, I know there's people that tip the dining room staff if you have the same dining room staff. I've never tipped the dining room on a cruise ship. So are there other people on the cruise that you tip, or other people out and about that you tip? Let's have the conversation in the comments below. Thanks so much for stopping by. Make sure you check out some other La Lido Loca videos. Again, this is Tony with La Lido Loca, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.